Last class, we talked about finding the slope from a graph. Today, we're going to be talking about finding the slope using a formula. So in this example, they want us to find the slope of a line that passes through these 2 points. I labeled the axes here to just remind you how to label each axis. So here are the negative x values, the positive x values, negative y values, and positive y values. And just remember, when we see an ordered pair, the x value comes first and then the y value. So I'm going to plot this point, -1, -2, and the second point, 1, 4. And I'm going to find the slope of the line that passes through these. So if we were to draw a line that goes through both of these points, it would look like this. And we're going to put arrows on the ends. So this is what the line would look like. So we're going to use what we talked about in class, and we're just going to count. So we're always going to go from the point on the left to the point on the right. And in this case, we'd have to go up and over. And so this would be up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares. So that's our starting point. The slope is equal to +6 because we went up, and over 2. So this was 6 squares and this was 2. So the slope of this line is 3. So we're going to be talking about using a slope formula instead. So as we already said, the slope, that's a symbol for slope, m. And the way we talked about it is that it's equal to rise over run. But there's another way I want you to look at it, and that is, and I'm going to give you some fancy symbols here and tell you what they mean. So it looks like a triangle, but this actually stands for the change in y over the change in x. Change in y over the change in x. And so what we're really talking about, if we look back to this problem, is how do the y values change? And how do the x values change? And that's really where the slope formula is coming from. So here's our slope formula. And this is when we have 2 points. And so we're just going to call this x1, y1, or you can say x sub 1, y sub 1, and x2, y2. So our slope formula is y2 minus y1. That's figuring out how the y values change, over x2 minus x1. That's how we're going to figure out how the x values change. So we're going to revisit that first example, and I'm just going to label each ordered pair. So this is an x value, this is a y value, this is an x value, this is a y value. This is the first ordered pair, so I'm going to put a 1 here and here. This is the second ordered pair, I'm going to put a 2 here and here. And that's where we're going to get the values for this formula. So I'm going to start off by writing the formula down. And we're just going to substitute these values in. So we're going to take y2, which is 4, minus y1, which is -2. Let's put that in parentheses. Divided by x2, which is 1, minus x1, which is -1. Let's put that in parentheses. And then we're just going to simplify. So we have 4 minus -2. That's the same thing as 4 plus 2. In the denominator, I have 1 minus -1. That's the same thing as 1 plus 1. So the slope is equal to 6 over 2, which is 3. So we get the same thing. You might think it's easier to graph, And if that's the case, I would recommend, if you get a problem like this, to just graph the 2 points and figure out the slope from there. One major thing you have to remember is if it's going down from left to right, you have to make it negative. However, sometimes we get ordered pairs that are really far apart from each other, so the formula is ideal. Here's the next example. So this is x, this is y, this is x, this is y. I'm just going to use the formula for this one. Here's our first ordered pair. I'm going to put a 1 there and there. Here's our second ordered pair. I'm going to put a 2 on both. So here's our formula. This is the change in the y values. This is the change in the x values. It's really, really important when you're using this formula to pull from the same ordered pair first in both the numerator and the denominator. And so I'm going to have -2 minus 1. And in the denominator, I'm going to have 5 minus 2. And simplify. So I have -3 in the numerator and a +3 in the denominator. Be really careful with negatives. And so we have -3 over 3, which is -1. I'm going to show you one more thing. And that's just a reminder that you're going to have this tool. And so let's say that you want to double check to make sure that you get -1. So make sure you substitute correctly and don't forget about that fraction key. Alpha y equals enter. And I'm just going to type this numerator exactly as it is. -2 minus 1, arrow down to the denominator, 5 minus 2, enter, and I do get -1. Here's the last example for you to try on your own, and we'll continue this in class.